So, welcome to the talk series on Guiding Lights by Zaggle. I'm Payal Gandhi Hoon, your host, bringing you some of the up and close and riveting conversations with some brightest HR leaders. Her strength lies in nurturing strong people networks to be a successful HR professional. She's a young and passionate next gen HR leader with experience in managing organization wide transitions and strategic business partnering. She has set up HR functions and led people programs like employer branding, global grading, ERP, leadership development, and employee wellness, campus engagement, and corporate social responsibility. So, on that note, I'd like to welcome Arati Mansukhani, Head People Experience, Volvo Car India, to be the guiding light today. Welcome, Arati.
Thank you so much, Payal, and good evening to everyone who will be seeing this recording. I'm really looking forward to this interaction, and I hope with this interaction I'm able to share some insights that I've learned along the way as I've grown in my HR profession.
Fantastic. So, Arti, let's start with my first question here. I'd like to start by asking, what is really your formula of being a successful HR leader?
Good question to begin with. I think one of the things that I say to anyone who asks me this question or is interested in being in HR, I would say that it's important to be authentic, and I think that's one value that as an HR person can bring to the profession. That say what you can do and then do what you have said. And I think that's one of the things that I would say that I followed as I've grown in my HR journey, that I would try and not really promise something that I can't deliver. And I think that is also important because people really see through you eventually, right? You have to be honest, you have to be sincere, you have to be genuinely interested in people. And if you're just having a transactional conversation, I think eventually it falls flat. So I think that's one thing that I would say as an HR professional, that be authentic when you talk to people, when you engage with them. And I think the second most important thing that again I have learned over the years, and that's helped me also become an effective HR professional, is being closer to the business. If as an HR person you do not know the business, you don't know the history, you don't know its enablers, you don't know what your people really struggle with on a day-to-day basis, no matter what policies that you make sitting out of your cabin, it's not going to work because you really don't know the business reality. So I think it's really important for you as an HR profession to be understanding your business closely. And from the beginning of my career, I've made this a point that whichever organization I've joined, I spent the first 90 days on the field. So I've really gone out, understood, what our people do, and then start delivering on what business expects you to do. So I think those are two key takeaways that I would share with the audience today, and in terms of what's made me where I am in the HR world.
Thanks much, Arti. I think you really hit the nail on its head by saying being really authentic, who you are, essentially. And second, what I can pick up from your conversation is business centricity and business mindset, and not being only functional driven or having that functional knowledge. And I love the best practice that you do as a part of your initial days in the organization, of spending the initial 90 days understanding the business in and out. So I'm going to really progress because you've had a varied portfolio across retail, hospitality, engineering, project management. So I'm sure you've had some ebbs and flows in your career, in the course of your career, managing the HR profile. So I'm quite curious to know if you can share any pertinent challenges that you may have faced during your career, and how did you really win over it?
So you've captured my journey quite well, Payal. That yes, I've been actually fortunate enough to work with different industries um, and different cultures. So I've worked with Indian cultures, I've worked with European cultures, I've worked with American cultures. So I think with that variedness itself, there are challenges because you have to adapt to an organization and its ways of working. But at the same time, I think one of the things that has been common in most of the organizations that I've worked with has been that they've gone through a transformation journey. So whether it has been hiving off from a parent company, setting up a new business, or a new org structure altogether, or change of the entire leadership, I think all these things I've been actually fortunate to be a part of when I've joined these organizations. And one of the things and challenges that comes with these transformation is managing uncertainty, anxiety, chaos. It is this madness. It's a lot of anxiety amongst people as to what's going to happen to them, because change is never easy. And I think that's been one of my biggest challenges in most of the organizations that I've worked with. And how I have dealt with it, again, over a due course of time, I've learned that you have to get comfortable with change. You cannot, say that I'm not going to change. So you have to get comfortable with the change, because you are the person who's going to lead this change along with your leadership from the front. And so if you are not convinced, you cannot really carry people along with that change. So I think that's the first step that I would say that anyone who faces such a situation should begin with. I think the next step in this case is to be human. Change is not just about some set of papers or some policies or some programs that you roll out, but you have to get human. And in this, I think let me share with you an example of how I managed a very big transition that we did in one of my organizations. This was a plant setup, and it was as old as the company itself, and the employees working there were also tenured employees. So they were with the company since its inception. And so I think the average tenure of those people was 10 to 12 years, right? And because of some business decision, we decided that this plant is no more viable. We'll have to close this plant. But it was not easy. It's not that you just decide overnight and then you send out a communication on an email and say that this plant is no longer viable, and so we cannot really continue, and so we'll have to close this, and this is the effective date, and so on. So I think what we did differently was we didn't really communicate this via an email, or we didn't call the people to the headquarters. In fact, we went to the plant. And it was extremely important to do this in person, also because this team was so closely knit that their family members also met over the weekend. It was like a small family together, and to tell them that this plant is no longer going to be operational it took a lot of emotional bandwidth of all of us who were involved in this process. And I think, but what we did differently was to involve the people in this change. It was no longer about just communicating that this decision has been made, and so this is what we've decided as your transition period, and this is going to be your package. We actually involved the people impacted in the decision. We asked them, we need your help, we need your support to make this transition happen, and in the best possible manner for the organization and for yourselves and for your families as well. So you tell us what will work for you, and we are ready to do that. So I think that's something that we did really differently from most of the other organizations that I've seen. Typically, when closures are done, it's more like a business decision that's communicated, and then the HR comes in picture and just kind of gets those papers signed and get an agreement from the employees on the last working day. As an HR person, I actually was available to them over a period of 6 months as a confidant. So they used to call me if they really wanted to kind of relieve their emotions of why it's happening. I had to deal with their denial, I had to deal with their acceptance, I had to even help them build their resumes, because they'd never really looked for a job outside. They've been with the organization for more than 10 years. They never put a CV together. So I had to help them build their resume, connect with people outside, help them network, outplace, other than, of course, what the organization was doing for them. And, it's because of this investment that I did as an HR profession with them. I'm happy to actually share that, it's been now more than 5 years, 6 years, but they're still in touch with me. We still share, those occasional festive greetings, and it really made a difference to myself as a person to be able to manage something so challenging, so emotionally overwhelming, and at the same time support people, transition and not just leave them out there finding something for themselves. So I think that's something that really has stayed with me even now.
Sure. And any other recent, I think, in terms of, the pandemic, any challenges that you faced in the career, especially from the manufacturing or automotive industry perspective, and how are you really dealing with that aspect?
Payal, I must tell you that, Volvo as an organization is extremely people-centric. And when I say that, I don't say it because it's written somewhere on a value poster that we may have in an organization, but it is felt, it is seen, it is witnessed in each of our actions, in each of our behaviors as leaders, as even people throughout the organization, and it's genuine care. And so, some of the things that we did, which of course, when the pandemic hit in the initial stages of early 2020, of course, automobile was hit like any other industry. And, there were a lot of industries that had to unfortunately lay off people as well. But I think one thing that as leadership of Volvo, we decided was they will forget layoff. There will not be even a salary cut. I think that's something that as an organization, we took a stand that, yes, we may, face certain months of extreme crunch in terms of cash flow. We may just be barely making it for a couple of months, and we knew everything was completely shut, but we cannot put the people under the bus. I think that's the, leadership ethos that we lead our people with. And I think that's something that we kept at the back of our mind. So that's something that sets us apart from most of the other organizations, which of course for their own business reasons had to take some hard calls. From an HR perspective, I was down with COVID, but I think because I knew what it was, I was available to people who really needed me. So you won't believe that, I used to get calls sometimes at 11 in the night, 12 in the night, that I have somebody at my home who's down with COVID, and my husband is not able to sleep. Is it normal? My husband doesn't eat. Is it normal? And I've, despite my own illness, I've actually handheld people to say it's okay. Don't think negative. It's a phase, and just count each day and just see your progress, and it's just a matter of 14 days or 18 days and it'll be over. I think just that, even that support meant a lot for people, and I think that's what I did to manage through the pandemic.
Thanks for sharing that, Arati. Of course, they've been tough times, and good to see that you're hale and hearty, and you were able to also empathize because you went through something like that yourself. So on that note, I think I'm going to move on to also something which is very HR centric, Arati. We're going to look at some HR trends that have been happening. You're obviously aware that HR and its image has been transforming at a very swift pace right now. And there's been a lot of deliberate efforts on behalf of HR to really take center stage. And maybe it's also the situation and the scenario in the last 2 years that has actually pushed the needle to HR right now. So as a guiding light, I'd like to understand from you, what are your views in terms of HR taking the lead in organizations now?
I think you've hit the nail correctly here, Payal, because traditionally HR leaders in organizations have not been HRs. Typically sales or operations or finance. I think these are most of the functions who've really grown into a leader in the organization. I think especially with pandemic, or I would say post-pandemic, this concept of brick and mortar office and these walls and where people sit behind certain cabins and and holding access to their own functions. I think all of that has really melted now, right? I think there's no workplace anymore. It's everything is so virtual, everything is so fluid, everything is like we say in the HR fraternity, VUCA. And I think VUCA could not have been more clearer at than during the pandemic time, when we really don't know, and we still don't know which other variant is going to come now. And I think that ambiguity, the softer aspects of managing people have come to the fore, especially around the pandemic and now post pandemic. So I feel that rightly HR is positioned to take that role in an organization, to take the leader role in an organization, because they've always dealt with people, and and no two people are same. So I think with that skill that they bring on board of being able to manage different facets, being able to put some method into madness, being able to manage chaos and ambiguity, and being there to support people and believe in people, I think I would say HR is actually a natural fit to be a leader in the organization, especially at these times when we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So none of our functional knowledge may really help us as much as the skill of managing people would. In fact, I don't know if you read about this, Payal, that India Mart as a company has started paying salaries on a weekly basis, which is something that's that came as for me it was a surprise, and I think that's a trend to watch out for, because when I started researching a bit more about it, it turns out that there are payroll vendors specializing in helping you pay out weekly salaries, and a lot of it is being done to kind of give some bit of financial flexibility to employees, also cater to now the ever growing gig economy, so so that they don't really have to wait for the entire month for the paycheck to hit their banks. I think they get paid for the time period that they work. So I think that's one trend which is picking and will be quite interesting to understand, because it looks like to me a very big administrative challenge as well. But let's see how that pans out.
Yeah, that's a good insight there, Arti, and an interesting trend that's happening. And I think that's where fintech SaaS companies really come into play, and they enable. I think they're great enablers in making this happen in this tech world for a lot of organizations as well. So on that note of managing people, you said the skill of managing people. Another emerging HR trend that's really coming up right now is aligning and enhancing the employee career life cycle. And I think a great role to play in this is really the rewards and recognition systems and employee benefits that organizations are paying more and more attention to. And obviously after, or let's say during the pandemic, that has become a central focus. We know of research where millennials are looking at other aspects of the job rather than just focusing on the remuneration per se. So I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts on that, Arti.
Absolutely. In fact, I would say that if we are heading towards hiring from millennials now. So our generation is now kind of passé, I would say. I think we're the no. So I think honestly, if you ask me, from a reward, recognition, and benefits perspective, I truly believe monetarily, of course, it's hygiene, that's all there. But in my view, the true recognition of a high performance, for employees is if you're able to build an employee's career in your organization. So if you're able to build his or her resume, I think if you're able to do that, then of course, reward and recognition, all of that follows. But I think especially true for millennials, millennials have already been provided for by their parents. So they're actually looking at meaningful work. They're looking at, well, does this work really align with my values? What's in it for me? How do I grow? What do I learn? I think those are the questions that millennials are asking. And this traditional, even progression paths that we've had of titles, of moving from executive to senior executive to assistant manager, I don't think they're really looking at that. They're looking at how do they move across verticals. Does the organization give me the opportunity to, do, let's say, marketing for 2 years? But then now I've seen what marketing looks like. So can I move to sales? Can I move to finance? can I learn about a different function? And I think if an organization has the capability to provide that kind of an opportunity where your people can move from one function to the other without really looking at, oh, are you really qualified? Do you really know finance? No. I think you need to tap into that curiosity that millennials will bring to the workplace. And I think tailor your development interventions for those people. I think that's where it'll be a win-win. You will establish a bond with them. They would love to grow with you, and you would see as an organization the amount of effort and energy that you will witness in your culture. I think that's my take on. If you're looking at benefits, you're looking at rewards and recognition, I think that's the way to recognize millennials in the workforce.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, because essentially what you're saying, it's a highly personalized way of giving them those rewards, recognizing them. And what I hear from you, Arti, is really those learning opportunities, a clear career growth path, not in the traditional sense of a career growth path, but really in what way are they interested. So really customizing those learning interventions, or maybe giving learning opportunities. I mean, sponsoring a course, or letting them take leave for higher studies and coming back. So plenty of things are happening and transforming in a positive way. But of course, and also from a pandemic perspective, we are looking at wellness, emotional, mental, physical wellness, and those kind of setups being given with the by the organizations, because now is the time when everybody is kind of rechecking and realigning where they are in their careers and how do they want to really proceed in their lives as well.
In fact, yes, I must share this with you that in Volvo we have something called an internship program. That's a global internship program, and if you apply to that global internship program, you actually get an opportunity over a period of a year or two to actually contribute these are projects which span different countries where Volvo is present in. So it gives you that exposure. So we have that as we call it the global graduate program. Locally, also we hire one intern every year, and we rotate that intern in different departments, so that that individual gets an opportunity to understand the business from the ground. And let me tell you that it's not that if you've specialized in marketing and so you will after a year get absorbed as a marketing personnel. No, it'll depend on whichever department there is an opportunity, you could get placed there, and then you grow from there, and then we rotate you to different departments. So I think that's something different that we do as well, that we don't really look at just the qualification or your specialization. We want people who are nimble, who are agile, who are willing to learn, and then can grow across the organization.
Thank you for sharing that, Arti. So essentially what you're saying is it's really the more aligned in terms of aspirations and also interests of the individual or the employee, rather than just the skill set. Skill set is an added benefit, but of course you're giving the opportunity to that, and that's a very open way of looking at the perspective of motivating and engaging better with employees in a way. What is that one advice that you'd like to give HR professionals that they absolutely must do?
I would say don't rush, slow down, invest in people, invest in relationships. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
For me, a sign-off line would be that use a little bit of humor in life and it becomes easy.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. So humor for all of us, having light moments, I think it just makes life more beautiful, more manageable. So thank you so much, Arti, for being the guiding light today on the series of Guiding Lights by Zaggle. It's been a pleasure interacting with you.
Thank you so much, Payal, for having me here. And I hope that, my experiences, are valuable to people who are looking at this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.